My Ferrari is as real as the breasts of the women that live here. So I've always been intrigued by cars that I'll probably never be able to afford. I try and set my sights on things that I can attain. 77 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, for example, Smoking the Bandit car, really cool car. I did find a 79, which is the year that I was born, 1979 Trans Am that I bought. Put some loving restoration into and enjoy that car. Those are the attainable things that, I can really sort of scratch that itch with. But for me, unless something changes in my life, at some point I may accrue enough wealth that I could afford something like a Ferrari. But, where I am in my life, I'm a small business owner. I have a mortgage. I have two kids. I have familial obligations that end up taking a lot of time and a lot of money. So for a guy like me to spend his money on a Ferrari right now in my life, probably not the wisest choice. But I've always been intrigued about maybe finding something that allows me to scratch that itch. Maybe something that's more Ferrari-esque. At some point in going down this rabbit hole of what Ferrari would I really like to own if I were in a position to buy one, I don't know why. I guess it's just because I grew up in sort of an 80s entertainment culture. I've always liked the Ferrari 308. The Magnum PI influence, there's just something cool about it. I know a Ferrari 308 is not the most desirable. It's a little bit of a dog in the Ferrari world. I think people, they realize that if you're going to spend that kind of money, if you're pushing $100,000 for a vintage Ferrari, that's kind of your entry point there. But if you just want to buy a good car that you can go out and enjoy, you can get a lot more car for that kind of money than a Ferrari 308. Maybe not in the Ferrari world, but certainly if you open it up to other choices, there are a lot of other things you can shop for. They're going to give you a thrilling driving experience. But for me, I just want to wear the Hawaiian shirt, cut the beard off so that I'm rocking the mustache and drive a 308. Back in maybe 2010, 2011, there was a Top Gear spinoff. It was Top Gear USA, and it was Adam Ferreira, Rutledge Wood, Tanner Faust. They were doing the whole Top Gear thing, and for an American market. And I enjoyed the original Top Gear. I loved that show. I also enjoyed the American version. I don't think it got quite as good a response, but I just enjoy the stories, enjoy the challenges, enjoy learning, about different kinds of cars from the show. And there was an episode where they were challenged to buy the best car for under $5,000 they could find that would basically make people think that they were richer than they were. And I believe the challenge was they were going to the Hamptons and they had to shuttle ladies from some shop downtown to this $1 million golf club. And they had to convince them that the car that they had found was the lap of luxury.
Wow, is this a real Ferrari?
It says Ferrari right up there.
Rutledge Wood, the car that he found, was a Ferrari 308 kit car. And this was earlier in the days of the internet. Certainly you could Google things and find information that was out there about different kinds of kit cars and different things that existed. But certainly it wasn't as easy to find information as it was today. So I never really even knew a thing existed. I thought, wow, there's this whole Ferrari 308 looking car, but it's built on a Pontiac Fiero chassis. And, that Pontiac Fiero chassis, that now you're starting to talk in the budget range that I'm comfortable spending. So I watched this show, and during the course of the challenge, the guys are giving Rutledge a tough time about his choice with the 308. And I think he said it best when he said, again, keep in mind they're in the Hamptons. I think what he said was, my Ferrari is as real as the breasts of the women that live here. And I thought, you know what? That's good enough for me. I like that. I like that idea. So we all like to present something. Maybe we don't have it naturally. Maybe we don't come by it by our natural life circumstance. But you know what? This is America. We can make it work. We can get our own version of that. So that inspired me to start keeping my eyes open, at least, for a nice condition Ferrari 308 tribute car. Let's call it a tribute. So a tribute for the modern man, I might put it. I start looking around online and I learn of this whole backstory about a company called Corporate Concepts. There was sort of a loose partnership with General Motors back in the mid-'80s. It wasn't really ever officially sanctioned by GM, but what Corporate Concepts was doing is they were receiving truckloads of Fieros straight from the Fiero factory, and through the Pontiac dealer network, these cars were being sold as something called a Pontiac Mera. The Pontiac dealers would basically upsell, it was sort of a conversion car, much like a conversion van. It was a body upgrade on a Pontiac Fiero. And the price was pretty competitive with a new Corvette. It still had the V6. It was not ever done on the four-cylinder Iron Duke. It was when the V6 came out, Bob Bracey, who started this company, Corporate Concepts, realized, like, okay, they're actually starting to do something with this Fiero that makes it pretty sporty, something that people are actually getting out and enjoying. And it's a nice little sporty two-seater car. I can do something with this. And he came from a background of snowmobile design. He certainly had a lot of fiberglass body background. That was sort of his specialty. So he was able to design a Italian-inspired vehicle around the chassis of the Pontiac Fiero. And it's actually funny. You can find Car and Driver reviews of this car where there are quotes from Bob Bracey, and that's how he puts it. He says it's not really meant to draw a single line from any specific car. It's just Italian-inspired. Well, that's a pretty big crock, because if you look at it, I mean, it is dead on a Ferrari 308. And through the course of some documentary work we've done on some other General Motors products in the past, we're doing a documentary on the F-Body, the Camaro, and the Firebird. We actually got an opportunity to interview some people at GM about that program. And we actually talked with one of the studio managers who worked on the Fiero platform. And I brought up this whole thing about this company that created these Fiero rebodies. And he said, oh yeah, Corporate Concepts, I remember them. We had some designers that would go and like moonlight for Bob over at that company. I said, really? And he was like, oh yeah, the guys that sculpted that thing, those were GM sculptors. Like that was basically a GM done car. So that, that was interesting. That even made it more in my mind like, oh, this is kind of a really cool like variant in this whole kit car world of Ferrari 308s. And come to find out, he was really the sort of the pioneer of creating these Ferrari tributes built on the Fiero platform. Anyway, I kind of get deeper and deeper into the history of researching this, and I find online, I think there were two articles I found. One was on Jalopnik's Nice Price or Crack Pipe feature that they would do, where they would find a unique car, and they would basically describe what this car is and ask the readership, is this a good price or is this guy smoking crack? The Jalopnik Nice Price or Crack Pipe's a little tongue-in-cheek, like, look at this heap, can't believe this person's asking this for it. But there was an article on Hemmings that someone had written about the Mera as well. And what these two stories were focused on is somebody was selling the very first Pontiac Mera that had ever been created. This was basically the prototype for this particular car, which was a Pontiac dealer rebody option. Wasn't ever sold as a kit. You couldn't buy the kit and rebody it yourself. It was sold as a Pontiac Fiero variant. This particular car was the only 86 that was ever made. I think there were 247. The number kind of varies. There's not really any firm documentation as to exactly how many were built, but it was right around 250. I think the agreed upon numbers, 247 of them were made. Ferrari, being the litigious company that they are, actually threatened a lawsuit to Corporate Concepts, and ultimately they had to stop making these. They settled to basically in production destroy the molds. They could finish out the orders they had, but they had to cease after that. But I found the very first one. They were made from 87 to 88. There was 186 that was made. It sat on the Detroit Auto Show floor. I believe it also sat on the LA Auto Show floor. I actually have found a picture online that shows the Fiero Mera booth, Corporate Concepts booth for the Mera concept at the 87 Auto Show. I found a picture that shows the car on the show floor. And it's interesting because in the foreground you see a Yugo sign. The text with the picture online says, wow, Yugo was doing some really interesting things in the 80s. And I thought, that's the car. That's the one that's being sold. This is the prototype. And so I did a little more digging, and I had a newspapers.com subscription. So I started searching newspapers for Detroit Auto Show floor, or Detroit Auto Show 1987, and I found an insert in a paper. I don't remember what paper it was, that had a map for the Detroit Auto Show floor in 1987. And sure enough, Corporate Concepts has a Mera booth between Yugo and Nissan. It was in the import section, which is funny. The Fiero is in an import section of the auto show. But you can see in the picture in the background, there's a Nissan sign. In the foreground, there's a Yugo sign. And here sits a silver Mera. So I get really excited. I'm like, holy crap, this is it. This is a neat car here. So I call the owner. The guy had it listed on Craigslist, which, for such an Italian-inspired tribute, can't believe it was on Craigslist, but it had been up for sale for about a year. I think he was asking about 25 grand for it. And that was kind of the focus of this Nice Price or Crack Pipe article, which was like, hey, do you think a rebodied Fiero as a 308 is worth $25,000? I think generally the consensus was no, but this was the first one. This was a prototype. It did have some pedigree to it. It just sat on the Detroit Auto Show floor. I thought it was pretty cool, and a lot of other people out there thought it was cool. A lot of people thought, why on earth would anyone want this? But I was one of those people that thought, it's worth a shot. So I called the guy. He had some life changes. I think he had just had a baby. He and his wife had a baby, and they were looking to downsize. He was an automotive enthusiast. He had come across this car sort of by happenstance, and after he started talking with the guy about it, realized it was the prototype. So he bought it years ago. We ended up negotiating for, I think, around $18,500, so I felt like I got a good deal. But I became the proud owner of the very first prototype Mera ever built. I figured, at least at this point in my life, this is probably as close as I'm going to get to Ferrari. And I also found that, that might be an okay thing because my wife and I honeymooned in Italy as well. This was actually after I had already bought the Mera. I think if we're in Italy for our honeymoon, I should at least go and see what we should try and take a factory tour or see some museums. I want to find out more about real Ferraris. So we go and we find out that there are two museums in Italy. There's one that's in Modena where Ferrari started. It's the Enzo Ferrari Museum. And then there's one in Maranello, which is where the factory is. And you can actually do a factory tour. And there's like a proving grounds out back you can go and tour. And there's a museum attached. And there were packages that we saw online where you could get tickets to both. We thought, well, that would be a cool little day trip, or at least I did. My wife went along with it. So we started at Modena, and we did the Enzo Ferrari Museum tour, and that was really cool. They have some really great historically significant Ferraris on display. They've got this whole film that plays that really tells the history of Ferrari, and you can walk through and see Enzo's office. You can really see like the building where Ferrari started. It's pretty amazing. And we went up and asked the person at the ticket booth, hey, we want to go to Maranello as well and take the factory tour and all that. What's the deal with like the package tours? And she said, oh yeah, there's a shuttle bus that goes back and forth. They come along every 30 minutes or so. Take your time, enjoy your stay here, and whenever you want to go, just go and you can hop on the next tour over there. So we did that. We took our time and got on the next shuttle bus, or maybe a few shuttle buses later, traveled over to the Maranello where the actual Ferrari factory is. And when we got there, we said, hey, we just came from the other museum and we want to do the factory tour. And they said, oh, we're sorry, the last factory tour just left 30 minutes ago. And we said, well, they told us at the other museum that we could just take our time and come over and just jump on the next tour. And they said, oh, well, we're sorry, sir, we're not actually associated with that other museum. So I got my taste of what the real Ferrari experience was like, which is you can enjoy Ferrari, but you can enjoy it on our terms. We're not going to make it easy for you, but that's kind of the prestige of Ferrari. So in any case, that made me even more satisfied with my purchase of a Ferrari tribute car. I have all the looks of a Ferrari 308, but I have all the conveniences and ease of service of a Pontiac Fiero. It's a neat car. I enjoy it, and I'm just thrilled that I found the very first one, and it actually sat on a major auto show floor. I think it's pretty cool. May not be for everybody, but for me, it's priceless.
Over the last 4 years, we've partnered with Glossit to show off some of their amazing detailing products, give you some great deals, and show how much they can transform any car. But did you know that Glossit University is also one of the most amazing online resources for education, mentorship, and coaching for whatever your business is in the detailing space? Whether you do paint correction, ceramic coating, PPF, wraps, anything like that, they can take your business to the next level. And right now, they're offering free 15-minute phone consultations where you can schedule at the link link in the description below. Tell them about your goals, tell them about your business, about yourself, and really where you want to get to, and they'll show you if they're online courses, they're in-person classes, where I'll actually be in their August class, or they're one-on-one or group mentorship programs with Rich Light from Glossit. It's an awesome way to take your business to that next level. So set up your phone consultation now, talk to them about where you're at today, and they'll tell you where you could be tomorrow.